Hello, welcome to the Personnel File, where we look at the career and character of some of Star Trek's iconic characters. This time we're going to be following the path of the first Ferengi in Starfleet, the tenacious Nog. Like some other characters from Deep Space Nine, we actually follow most of his Starfleet career throughout the course of the show, so in order to flesh out some more of the details, I'm going to include a sizable amount of extra canonical sources, such as books, comics and games, to fill in the missing parts. And because the character was just starting out in their Starfleet career, we will also be looking into their path the character took as represented in various media. In many ways, Nog, much like his father Rom, would have been swallowed up by the unchecked Ferengi business culture had he not forged his own path. In 2351, Rom and Prinadora's families negotiated a marriage contract of 5 years with the goal of producing an heir, and in 2353 Nog was born on Ferenginar. In 2356, Rom, now besotted with his wife, petitioned for and signed a contract extension with Prinadora's father and neglected to notice amendments in the contract that entitled Prinadora's family to all of Rom's wealth. Shortly after, in 2358, Prinadora left as her father commanded, and Rom lost his wealth. She also left the 5-year-old Nog with her husband. Rom, now destitute, was unable to enroll Nog in Ferengi educational programs and turned to his brother Quark for employment. He and his son relocated to Terok Nor in the Bajor sector and worked in his bar. In 2366, Nog contracted a double helix virus which was cured soon thereafter. In 2369, the Cardassian occupation of Bajor came to an end and they withdrew from Terok Nor. Bajor requested Federation aid in rebuilding, and the station was renamed Deep Space Nine under Joint Federation Bajoran control. Commander Benjamin Sisko convinced Quark to stay on the station, and with him, Rom and Nog. Nog was taught mostly from home, it seems, and possessed many Ferengi-taught biases, although he overcame these and befriended Jake Sisko, who taught him how to read. Nog was also enrolled in Keiko O'Brien's DS9 school for further education when that opened its doors on DS9. In 2371, Nog makes it known to Commander Sisko that he intends to apply to Starfleet Academy and requests that Sisko sponsors his entry as he is not of a Federation world. Initially refused, Sisko tasks Nog with cargo inventory, to which the young Ferengi diligently accomplishes the task, leading to Sisko to sponsor the young man. In 2371, Nog applies to Starfleet Academy and is accepted. In 2372, en route to Earth, a time travel incident throws Nog, Quark, Rom and Odo back to New Mexico 1947. This excursion would be recorded in history as the Roswell incident. On arriving at Earth in the correct time, Nog enrolled in Starfleet Academy at the age of 19. From the start, he had made the decision to work in the operations divisions, capitalising on his father's technical know-how. Among his classes, he was assigned to a mega squad alongside Matthew Decker, great-grandson of Matt Decker, under the command of Commander Kaithan Zund. During his time at the Academy, Nog took the Kobayashi Maru test twice. Once he saved the Kobayashi Maru ship at the cost of his own vessel, unsatisfied with the results as many a cadet before him has been, he retook the test. This time the simulation froze and crashed when he tried to negotiate with the aggressors, instead, as the negotiations became too complex and the simulation ended. In this way, perhaps he could be considered as beating the infamous no-win scenario by stalling the whole system. He and Omega Squad also faced charges for violating General Order 7, travelling to Talos 4, but they were pardoned due to the extreme circumstances involved. They also were involved in the Tau Shiar sleeper agent Selk's attempt to infiltrate Starfleet. In his sophomore year, 2373, he was assigned field studies on Deep Space Nine. In 2373, the Dominion War erupted, and he was assigned to the USS Defiant NX 74205 under Captain Sisko. Many cadets were given active roles on the front from Starfleet to bolster its numbers. In 2374, Cadet Nog was granted a field promotion to Ensign, marking his graduation from Starfleet Academy. He took part in Operation Return to recapture the Bajor sector from Cardassian Dominion forces. During this year, Ensign Nog was involved in the loss of the USS Valiant NCC 74210 at the hands of the cadet-run Red Squadron. He was one of 3 survivors. In 2375, he partook in the siege of AR-558 and was wounded when a Jem'Hadar soldier shot him in the leg. It had to be amputated in triage. On medical leave, he was fitted with a biosynthetic replacement, but developed a psychosomatic limp. He withdrew from society and spent much of his time in the holosuite, even considering resigning his commission. He received counselling from Station Counsellor Ezri Dax and returned to active duty. He took part in the Second Battle of Chintoka and the final battle of the Cardassia Prime system at the end of the Dominion War. In the aftermath, Captain Sisko recommended Nog for promotion, and in 2376 he was promoted to Lieutenant Junior grade. His first duty was as the acting security chief of the USS Defiant until a replacement from Starfleet could be found. He then returned to operations on Deep Space Nine. In 2377 he was promoted to lieutenant. He also returned to Ferengi for leave when his half-sister was born to Grand Nagus Rom and First Lady Lita. Around 2382 he was promoted to Lieutenant Commander and reassigned. We don't have an exact date. He was assigned as the head of security to the Starfleet Engineering Corps vessel, the USS Challenger NCC 71099, a vessel designed to field test and innovate Starfleet technologies. This was a posting he actively campaigned for, as he wished for the experience on a relatively renowned vessel to further his career under Captain Montgomery Scott. This posting was a strong merger of his training as a soldier and his Starfleet technical career. In 2384 he transferred back to Deep Space Nine as the chief engineer. He was briefly reassigned to Starfleet Intelligence to join the Active 4 task group after the assassination of Federation President Nanieta Bako, until its duty had been fulfilled. In 2389 he was promoted to Commander. This is a speculative date based on alternate reality versions of Nog, so it may not be wholly accurate. In 2396, Geordie LaForge transferred to Captain the USS Challenger, and Nog transferred to the USS Enterprise NCC 1701E as Chief Engineer in 2397. In 2405, the Third Klingon-Federation War erupted, and at this time Commander Nog was working at Utopia Planitia. By 2409, Nog was promoted to Captain and chosen to command the new Chimera-class prototype, the USS Chimera NX-97400. This too was a vessel produced by the Starfleet Corps of Engineers, and I suspect as Nog was working at Utopia Planitia, he may have had a hand in its development, especially as Starfleet has a documented habit of assigning captains to oversee the construction of their vessel when available. In early 2409, Captain Nog rescues the crew of a vessel during a training mission from Klingon aggressors. He was also present when the Borg assimilated the Federation colony world of Vega and proceeded to see combat during the Iconian War of 2410. This is where even the Memory Beta timeline for Captain Nog ends, but I feel that it's a well-earned position with him in command of his own SCE vessel, a prototype of its class, and having successfully fused his chosen career of operations with his duty-bound service as a soldier. The very fact that he was the first Ferengi in Starfleet is said to have inspired many other Ferengi to join after the organisation widened its recruitment policies, and he became somewhat of a poster for the ideal that a person's actions dictate their position in life, not the circumstances of their birth. At least, when granted the opportunity. As mentioned in the intro and the show, Nog very much wanted to join Starfleet as a way out of a culture that he felt was an ill fit for his talents. At a disadvantage when compared to other Ferengi from his family's destitute status, he was unlikely to ever progress far in their commercially driven society, so had begun to put his tenacity and scheming nature towards more nefarious exploits, often using his uncle's connections or influence combined with his inherited technical know-how. His street smarts would have been a boon to him and his family while Terok Nor was under the ownership of the Cardassian Union, and it's not pleasant to imagine the sort of environment that he would have had to have grown up in. It could be argued that Jake Sisko's friendship and influence showed Nog that he had another path to walk, one where he could aim his talents towards something more productive, but it was Nog himself that had to put in the effort and the conviction behind his actions. The choice to join was ultimately his own. When a part of Starfleet, he eagerly sought to do honour to the faith he had earned from Commander Sisko by trying hard and seeking to be a model Starfleet cadet, both on duty and off. This led to a seeming drastic shift in character for the young man as he tried to justify to himself and others his place in the Federation, despite the concern it brought him from the more traditional Ferengi family. He treated others with respect and in turn expected that same consideration, occasionally even squaring up to those who he found disrespectful. If we look at his progression as depicted after the series closed out, we can see that his actions, assignments and eventual position seem to mark out a clear goal. He remains circling in the divisions of security operations and engineering, taking advantage of all the gold uniform has to offer, but it doesn't seem to be aimless. He tried to operate from Deep Space Nine as frequently as he could, returning to the station many times for extended periods and pursuing assignments away from his home turf only for specific roles, such as his tenure aboard the USS Challenger and the Enterprise in his later life. Of course, the biggest event in his life was his wounding during the Dominion War. The damage done to him repaired physically, it nonetheless shattered his ambition and that same conviction that had driven him to take those steps into Starfleet in the first place. Being so suddenly confronted with mortality in such a way, it's understandable that he would choose to withdraw, to hide from the world, and it falls to those friends around him to try to rescue him. Those around him were there because of the respect and eagerness he conveyed, and their desire to keep his ideals aflame even through his most cynical times. It seems fitting that he is able to reconcile his time as a soldier with his career, a story reflective of the trauma many an officer would have and will go through. Although, as said, a lot of these stories are content outside of the official canon and merely from licensed works. I think that these tales continued the legacy established by a talented actor, and in these stories the man lives forever. Some excellent episodes featuring him are Heart of Stone, where the B-plot has Nog's motivations for joining Starfleet laid out. The gripping and gritty siege of AR-558 is a strong depiction of the harsh realities that the idealistic cadet finds himself thrust into, as well as the follow-up recovery episode, It's Only a Paper Moon. But I also recommend the Valiant episode to see an alternative to being out of their depth. Thank you for watching this file on the life of Nog from Deep Space Nine. I wanted to make this video sooner, but I didn't want it to come off, I don't know, I was trying to capitalise on events. It's a poor tribute, but I hope that it's something. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, goodbye.